Has there ever been a quintessential moment in your life? One where you knew for a fact that things were going to change? A moment that you did something you said you would never do. Sometimes this happens a lot when we're in a group of friends, for example. You might decide that because all of your friends are smoking and drinking, and although you're not big on that, you do it anyway. You might think that because your partner is really big in sports and is like a real fanboy that you want to behave the same way. And sometimes, and in my case, you decide to take a leap and do something that you told yourself you would never, ever do. It can have good results, can open your mind and your body and your spirit to new experiences, or it could be an awful experience and teach you that you shouldn't need to change yourself for anyone. This is the one with the sex club. I've spoken in length about the way that my wife and I live our lives. We have a polyamorous marriage and a lifestyle that we both are very open about with one another, as well as with our friends and family. It's not something that I ever personally thought that I would ever be able to get behind or even accept or understand, but in time I've learned that it actually fits. Sometimes you never know until you're in a situation like mine that maybe the person you're with can't give you 110% of what it is you need. It's possible that although you love your partner and they love you too, there's just certain parts of yourself that they can't contain, that they can't hold on to. Maybe you're an overly emotional, sensitive, loving, touchy-feely type of person, and you are in a relationship with someone who's the polar opposite. There's nothing wrong with going out and getting you another partner that can give you that more intimate, touchy-feely type of relationship that you crave so much from your partner. I never thought that I would ever be in a situation like that. I never thought that I would ever be in a relationship like that because I was so against it for so many years. I mean, I actually ended a situationship with a person because that was the relationship they wanted. They wanted us to see other people but still deal with each other. And I wasn't ready for that type of commitment. And then I met my wife. And she opened my eyes and my mind and everything else to the ideology that this is an okay way to live. So about 1.5 years into my relationship with my wife, we had a sit-down conversation, as many couples often do, about the dynamic that we wanted in our relationship. My wife had been poly since she was 19 years old. It's always been that way for her. She's always lived her life that way. It's just a part of who she is. So when she sat down with me and just wanted to go over just some basics, some ground rules to figure out our dynamic and how we want to interact with each other, if we're both going to be dating other people, is it just going to be a singular issue? Are we just going to am I just going to use the polyamorous lifestyle for play for me, or am I actually going to date people? You know, an adult conversation about the issues at hand. I wasn't sure. Like I said, I wasn't 100% sure if I could actually live my life like that. Like, I didn't think I was ready for that. To me, I've always equated sex with emotion, so I couldn't have meaningless sex with a person. I didn't think I could have sex with more than one person. I didn't think I could be in a relationship with more than one person. I didn't think my heart and my soul was big enough for that. But over the last 3 years, I've learned that it is. So I started talking to other people. Went on dating apps, which I didn't realize there were some that were directly actually aimed at the poly community, which I did not know about. But nonetheless, I started talking to a few people, expanding my, social circle. And One night, my wife and I are sitting down watching TV, and she says, "Would you consider going to a lifestyle club?" At first, it took me a minute to register what lifestyle club was, and I said, "Well, I'm not sure." I mean, my biggest fear with anything like that would be health. Or is the place clean? Is it a safe place to go? Like, what are the rules? How does it work? And she said we were going to look into all of that. So we settled in on one in particular that was in our area, had pretty much great reviews for most of the other members of the community in Philly, and set up a night to go down there and check it out. At the time, my wife was in a relationship with someone else, and she invited him to go with us since he had experience in that type of environment. It was new for the both of us, so we wanted to make sure that, we had someone who kind of knew what they were doing. Someone who knew the atmosphere, the type of people, the situations you could get into, just someone to make sure that we were doing everything in a safe way. So I, on my petty jealous shit, didn't want to be the third wheel on a night out with my wife. So I decided that I was going to invite one of the people that I was talking to at the time. Now, granted, like I said, my wife was low-key dating this person. So she knew him. They had a pretty good, talking relationship. They really connected. It was a lot of good energy. So she felt safe in inviting him to accompany us. But because I'm not good at expressing myself, I didn't say, "Hey, I'm jealous, so I'm going to invite someone else." I made it seem like, you have someone going with you, so why don't I invite someone to come with me? This way, we can kill two birds with one stone, get to know new people, and also have this experience together. So I invited this guy, which I know, surprise, surprise, the lesbian decided to invite a man to go to a sex club. How much sense does that make? I know. Not my brightest moment. It also wasn't my brightest moment to bring a guy who was very much into BDSM and bondage to take him to a fucking playground where there's nothing but that type of stuff in the air. So the guy was relatively older than me. And we did have a lot in common. Like, we talked. He was really cool. Like, he really could have been like a friend. But I wasn't really giving off friend vibes at the time. I was low-key throwing it at him in an attempt to get him to agree to go with me. So then this way I wouldn't be a third wheel while my wife met this new guy she was talking to. I know. Jealousy in an open marriage is never a good thing. And I had a lot of it in the beginning. So fast forward to the night that we go, my wife and I get off of work early, pay my father-in-law to watch the kids. We get all the supplies. We get liquor. We get sexy outfits. We went and got some takeout. We got to the hotel that was across the street from the place we were going to and decided that we were going to have some pregame shots, have some food, wait for the guys to get there, and then we would all go over together. That was the plan. So my wife's friend gets there. He's a really nice guy, really cute, nerdy, little older white guy. And he's a real sweetheart. Then my guest arrives, and he looked like his pictures. He didn't catfish me or anything, but he was very pushy. I explained to him that the whole BDSM thing was already new to me. The whole bondage thing was new to me. And on top of that, where we were going was going to be new to me. He didn't seem to grasp that concept and was very pushy when it came to everything. He made me very uncomfortable. And because I don't know how to express myself effectively with people when I'm scared, I didn't tell him that I felt uncomfortable. I didn't tell him that I didn't like certain things he was saying and his attitude and his behavior. I didn't tell him that I would prefer it if he didn't, call me his plaything. I didn't tell him any of those things. I basically allowed him to do whatever he wanted because I was too scared to tell him the truth. And that was how we ended up in the situation we were in, which was I didn't really want to go with him anymore. I was scared. But I didn't know how to tell him that. I mean, the guy drove 2 states away to come spend the night with me. But that was just it. I thought we were just going to go to the club, have some drinks, dance, see how the situation was. And then, he would go his way. My wife would have her time with her friend and I would just go to bed. I didn't know that he was under the delusion that, we were going to spend the entire evening together. Like he got a hotel room and everything. I didn't feel comfortable. So rather than tell him that, I went along with it anyway. We get to the club and it was actually really dope. Like my wife and I, we were like really digging the vibes. Her date was a real gentleman. He was a sweetheart. He was explaining certain protocols and procedures to us. He was being like really helpful. And then there was my date, who low-key was under the impression that we've low-key been together for about 15 years and thought he could treat me like we were actually in like a long-term committed relationship. So ladies, and even some gentlemen that are listening, if you're ever going to make the dumb mistake that I did and assume that you can do something like this with someone, make sure that they're not a fucking sociopath. So my wife and her friend go off and do their thing in their little private area. And I was just trying to keep everything out in the open because I really did not want to be alone with this guy. And I thought, if people saw that I was uncomfortable, if anything were to happen, they could intervene, it would be safe, and I would be okay. Well, I'm also a sucker. It's very easy to convince me to do things. That's why a lot of people have enjoyed having sex with me, because you can basically guilt trip me into doing anything. So that was exactly what happened. The two of us ended up going to take a tour of the private rooms that they had, and he convinced me, because I have no fucking mind of my own, to go into the room with him. He then proceeded to try to have sex with me, and I got emotional. 1, I was drunk. 2, I was terrified. And 3, I had seen enough episodes of SVU to know that I was either going to leave this room in one of 2 conditions: being rescued by a security guard, dead, or the victim of rape. What made the situation a lot worse wasn't even the fact that I was scared and I was literally crying, but it was the fact that the sound of my crying actually aroused this man so much so that he was actually jerking off to the sound of me crying. Yeah, you didn't mishear that. That actually fucking happened. So, after being in the private room with this guy, I decide that I just want to get away from him. I leave the room, I go out to the bar, and I'm waiting for my wife and her friend to be finished, with their private time. Which was totally consensual, by the way. My situation was the only thing where I was idiot enough to low-key get sexually assaulted at a lifestyle club. So I'm sitting at the bar, having a drink, trying to avoid anything. I mean, I left him to clean himself off and everything. And then this girl that I had talked to online like a couple of months prior, her and her boyfriend showed up. And she was like a real sweetheart. 1, she was gorgeous. She was so nice. I had told her that me and my wife, we're going to check this place out. So she was like excited to see me and basically asked if me and my wife and her friend wanted to come into the BDSM room and just check things out. Well, I was drunk. I was annoyed. And the one thing that I was always very capable of doing is, despite being all of those things, this girl was hot. I asked my wife if I could indulge myself. She said yes. So I proceeded to go down on this girl in a room full of people. What I didn't realize was that my company, my guest, decided that he was going to come in and look for me. And when he saw what I was doing, he got so angry that he left. Yeah, he just left. Which actually saved me the horrible conversation of actually having to let him down and tell him I wasn't fucking interested in him anymore. So, my wife and her boyfriend drove me to Wendy's. We got some food, whatever, went back to the hotel. Her and her friend had their moment, and then I went to sleep. Wake up in the morning to a mountain of text messages from this guy, basically calling me everything but the whore of Babylon. How he didn't know I was a swinger. Oh, he thought I was just in a poly relationship. Oh, he didn't know I went that way. Oh, he didn't know that I was into that type of stuff. He's like, yeah, because it's one thing for me to share you with your spouse, but I don't want to share you with other people as well. And basically just a whole bunch of bullshit. I never claimed to be anything I wasn't. From the very beginning, I let this person know that I was in a polyamorous relationship with my wife. We did not date together because we have two very different tastes in people. Obviously, I have fucking terrible taste. And I also didn't just want to be tied down to only dealing with men. I never said that if I got into a situation with a person that they would be my only partner. So he misunderstood everything and then got mad because it didn't go his way. But the lifestyle club itself was actually really great. The atmosphere was amazing. Despite the fact that my first interaction with a person that wasn't my wife didn't go as planned, it was a good time. My wife and I decided a couple of months later that we would go just the two of us and go. And we had a blast. It was so much fun going just the two of us and, exploring that type of stuff together without, being there with other people. We really got to see how each of us interacts with other people, just the type of fun we can have. And it was just overall a pretty great experience. Well, when my wife and I told friends of ours about what had happened and, the experiences that we had there, a lot of people were under the delusion that my wife was forcing me to live this way. That my wife was forcing me to get involved with people I didn't want to get involved with, forcing me to have sex with people I didn't want to have sex with. And that's not what it is. A lot of the exploring and the self-discovery that my wife was able to do in her late teens, early 20s, I was just doing now at 26. So it may have seemed to the outside world that I was being forced into things I didn't want. But in reality, I was figuring out what it was I did want. And I made a couple of mistakes along the way. I mean, I'm human. We all make mistakes. But that's one of the funny things about being in a relationship like ours. Since we're so open with people about our dynamics, since we both have podcasts, we both tell people our business, it is easy for people to assume about our marriage, about our relationship, about our dynamic. And it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to assume and be wrong. But the thing that I will never understand is people that feel the need to judge while also assuming things. From the outside looking in, you can look at our relationship and assume that my wife runs the show, that she's the one in charge, that I don't have a mind of my own. From the outside looking in, it could look like I'm the dainty little housewife and I don't do anything wrong, and my wife is merely the domineering spouse. That's not true. But that's the funny thing about assumptions. You can look at a person and assume a lot about them just based off of how they walk, how they talk, how they dress, and how they carry themselves. But when you actually get to know the person, you can see that they're not exactly who you think they are. To look at me, you would never know I've done half of the things that I've done. You wouldn't think that I like the type of people I like. That my relationships have been with the people that they've been with. But I guess that's why they say that you can never judge a book by its cover. And in my case, you can't judge a book by its cover. And you also can't judge a marriage based off of what you think you know. So think about that the next time that you want to judge that married couple next door you always hear arguing at night. Or that couple that you see in your restaurant or something when you're working. Your friends from high school that got married. Don't make assumptions about people just based off of how they might appear to you. Get the chance to know them. Or here's an even better idea. Mind your own damn business.